This is episode 54 with Todd Martin.
Welcome to Spot On Insurance. Join us each week as we speak to insurance professionals, attorneys, regulators, and compliance specialists on topics ranging from improving your agency to staying on the right side of the law. Subscribe and stay informed on the effects of new trends and disruptive emerging technologies on your businesses and your industry.
Today I have the pleasure of welcoming not one but two people on the program. I'm going to start with Arlene Tavares, who makes her debut as co-host for Spot On. Well, are you nervous, excited?
Oh my goodness. I guess I am a bit nervous, but I am especially so excited because Ted, you know that I love talking to people. I love getting on planes and I always chat with my neighbors. And this is just a great opportunity for me to talk to a lot of people that we know in the industry, but just to kind of like dig into what they are working on. And so it's just really exciting for me. I'm super stoked.
Well, all right. Go on with your bad self and introduce our guest.
So our guest today is Todd Martin, a partner in the law firm Stinson Leonard Street, one of the nation's 200 largest law firms with nearly 450 attorneys serving clients nationwide from its 13 offices. Todd has more than 20 years experience in insurance regulation, administrative law, and employee benefits. He regularly advises insurers, third-party administrators, brokers, and employers on health plan regulatory issues, including the Affordable Care Act and other state and federal laws and regulations. He has been involved in setup and advising of a wide variety of health and wellness plans and other consumer-driven healthcare programs. Todd, thank you for taking the time to educate our spot-on circle of insurance professionals.
Thanks a lot. Glad to be here.
Todd, can you take our audience through your career journey?
Sure. So I started my career after law school working in the in-house law division of a large life and health insurance company. And so started working with insurance issues back at that time and then left there. And I've been in private practice of law now for about 15 years or so, working with insurance matters and employee benefits.
And your firm is Stinson Leonard, correct?
Right. So we're a large law firm. We've got 13 offices around the country, and I work with our insurance group and our employee benefits group.
We're really familiar with your firm. We have a great friend that works there, Pete Thrain. We've been working with him for probably about 17 or 18 years. We worked with him on a really large project for one of the world's largest carriers, and we've continued to work with him ever since. So,
he and I have been friends for about a decade or so, and over the years have discussed, joining together and finally made that happen about a year and a half ago.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Talk to us a little bit about what an association health plan is.
The idea is that an association of businesses or individuals would look to try and help their members by offering themselves a health plan solution. So an individual business, of course, can go out and start up a health plan, buy their own insurance. If they're a small employer, then their options for health insurance are going to be to buy insurance on the small group market. If they're an individual or a sole proprietor, their option may be to buy insurance on the individual market. The idea of an association health plan is for the association to aggregate its members, bring those members together, and then have it operate more like a large employer, either in offering a self-funded health plan where that's allowed, or in buying insurance and utilizing the collective power of all of the association members for that purpose.
So, for example, in ILSA, we have the Texas office, which has 65 to 70 employees. So how exactly would this help us rein in our costs?
To the extent that you could partner with other members within an association of like organizations, then the association may be able to step into the shoes of the HR person that would be, doing that for your group, and work collectively with the entire group to develop a plan and program that would fit the needs of the members.
So we're talking about maybe agencies getting together in terms of the insurance industry, pooling together to create an association in order to do this?
So that raises issues about exactly what groups can get together, and that gets into the laws around association health plans. But in general, the laws at the state level have been that there must be a reason for the association to exist other than buying insurance. So it's a group that's doing other things for their members and then also is getting involved in insurance.
How similar do the businesses have to be?
This is an area where the law is developing. So the states that have had exemptions in their laws for association health plans have had rules about the membership aspects of that. So number one, that the businesses are in a similar industry and they're coming together for purposes other than buying insurance. There can be requirements about how long the association has been in place before it can offer an association health plan. Now, the new regulations that have been issued in proposed form at the federal level would expand that and would allow groups to come together that aren't necessarily in the same industry. So chamber groups or other groups like that, that would be an expansion of the connection that the members of the association would have to have with one another.
And you mentioned that the group can't come together just for the purpose of purchasing health insurance. What are some of the other things that the association would provide the members?
Members in a certain industry that are, coming together to assist members in that industry. It could be a cooperative like structure. So the dairy cooperatives, the farm cooperatives are an example of that, where members are coming together to support one another.
Okay. And have there been a number of legal hurdles to association health plans?
Yes. Before the Affordable Care Act was passed, the regulation of association health plans was almost exclusively at the state level. So there had been federal rulings that said where you have a multiple employer plan, which is the case here with associations, there is not federal preemption of state law. So the states could regulate these plans and programs. And so some states were very restrictive, for example, would just flat out prohibit association health plans. If they had even one small group in there, then they'd have to comply with the small group rules or would not allow individuals into the plan. Other states were more flexible and maybe allowed self-funding of association health plans or an ability of the associations to come together and to be treated as a large group, even though they may have small groups or individuals within the plan.
What would you say are the two most restrictive states?
It's hard to say right now because there's a lot of change even at the state level. So, for example, I would have said in the past, Kansas was the most or one of the most restrictive states. Didn't allow self-funding and was very restrictive. But they've recently passed a law that has significantly expanded the ability for associations to self-fund and to run association health plans. And so this is an area where the law is rapidly changing. Wisconsin was another state that's been very restrictive. There's a bill pending right now that would expand that. So it's hard to say, exactly where the lines are going to be at the state level.
But it sounds like they're becoming more lenient for numerous states, right? So it sounds like the setups will be a lot easier in the future. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So, in general, state legislatures and governorships at this moment are more held by GOP majorities, and the GOP ideas are a little more flexible in accepting to the ideas of association health plans. And so that's been kind of the basis of a lot of changes at the state level, where the state legislatures and the governor have been looking at trying to bring in new options at the state level that would give opportunities for associations to come together to sponsor health plans.
Well, with all these changes that are in the landscape right now, if you're looking to start a new association, what things should you consider?
The first issue that an association should be thinking about is, are we a viable group for sponsoring a health plan? And it really starts with having good partners helping you with that analysis. So working with a broker who can help you think through insurance operations, can help you, evaluate your membership and the opportunities that you might have. And then also, if you head farther down the path and you're really, wanting to explore in more detail whether an association health plan is workable, having an actuary to help you having legal counsel to help you, thinking about your options is kind of the first step of that.
So what are the costs involved in all of this if I'm doing it that way?
So it depends on what kind of plan you're going to have. So if the idea is to start up a self-funded health plan, that's a little more significant undertaking. So you're going to have to be, creating this plan and program. So there's legal work that needs to be done and actuarial work that needs to be done, for that. So that's probably $100,000+ undertaking. Sponsoring an insured association health plan can be much less expensive. And it's really a matter of, first, working with your partners to analyze whether an association health plan's structure is workable, and then going out and seeing whether insurance carriers are interested in your group and whether it's going to be, viable to get insurance.
So then probably my first shot at this is to look at what associations already exist that I could fit into, and then look at these others, right?
Right. So as an individual employer, you might say, okay, what associations are out there in my industry? Do any of those have association health plans now? Or might they, possibly consider an association health plan in the future? When the Affordable Care Act came in, that put a lot of constraints on the viability of association health plans because there were some new rules about small groups or individuals who might be in these association plans. And the rules generally said if you have a small group, then that group needs to be in the small group market. Or if you have individuals, that individual needs to be in the individual market and can't be pooled in an association. So now these new federal regulations, move ahead that would expand that and allow associations to come together and include small groups or individuals.
And do you find that brokers are typically talking to their clients about association health plans, or is it at the company themselves, their HR person? How are companies aware that this option exists?
Yeah, I think the broker is a great source of information. If a broker is sitting down with their client and saying, okay, what coverage options are available to you? Obviously, maybe the small group options are one thing to look at. And then another question to ask is, are there associations that you're involved in that may be sponsoring health plans that may be an option for you?
Great, interesting.
What are some of the tales you can tell us about some of the experiences that you have of some that you formed?
I think one of the more successful association health plans has been one that has been operated by the dairy farmers. There's a subsidiary of the Dairy Farmers of America Cooperative that's been running an association health plan for decades. And, of course, they've had to deal with different state laws and have different solutions in different states, but they've really been able to bring a couple different benefits to their farmers. So one is these members are obviously rural, they're farmers. And so connecting with, health options in rural areas is a challenge. And so their health plan options have been able to find solutions that are really beneficial to their members in these rural areas. And then they've been also able to pool the collective buying power, of all of the farmers in the cooperative to help come up with better solutions than they would have available to them individually.
Interesting. That's definitely something that's interesting to us because, in Texas, we're definitely in a rural area. So
Spot On is sponsored by Insurance Licensing Services of America. Need help with corporate name changes, annual returns, or surplus lines tax filings? Feeling overwhelmed? If you're looking for experts in regulatory compliance, you've come to the right place. ILSA provides the industry with over 50 services. To learn more about the company and how they can help, visit ilsainc.com.
And what do you see coming up in the future? I know that you said that there's so many regulations that are changing. How long do you normally see that it kind of settles and takes before it gets deployed?
Be more clear and more finalized, sometime this summer. And a number of the larger carriers who are involved in the association health plans, market have been kind of holding on and waiting to see exactly what will happen with those regulations, if they'll pass, if they'll be changed. But I think that will really drive the options that are going to be available into the future. So, one of the issues is going to be the extent to which these federal regulations will preempt state regulation and allow a more uniform kind of association health plan across the country? Or will they just send us back to kind of where we were before the ACA, where it's really a state-by-state analysis on whether an association health plan is viable or not?
So talk to me about time frame here. If I'm doing this, what kind of time is this going to take me to make this happen?
It probably takes about a year to get an association health plan up and running, and you've got to kind of think about the transition time frames, also for your members. So if your members are operating on calendar year plans, then if you're going to offer something, you've got to be getting something in place at least by the fall to think about, for your members to be able to review the options that they have and to, make a change as of the first of the year. Mm-hmm. So, for those associations that are thinking now about, whether or not an association health plan may be viable for them, I think the sooner the better for starting that. A lot of members are going to be looking to their associations, if the laws are liberalized, to say, hey, is there a solution that you can offer for us that'll help us with this challenge that we have with healthcare costs? And so, working with partners to help evaluate the nature of the association and the membership. Is this a healthy group? Are they in areas where, networks are available? What kind of coverage options might be available? And so those are the kinds of things that really need to be evaluated ahead of starting up an association health plan.
Can you give me a number as to the percentage that I would be saving joining an association? Perhaps, is there an average number?
It's really hard to say, and it's kind of across the board, but I know an association that just went in that's sponsoring a self-funded health plan is looking at about a 20% savings across the board, for their members. And so there are some real options and some opportunities there for some savings, and whether or not you'll actually be able to achieve savings, goes to, who are your members and what are the dynamics of that? What kind of critical mass do you have? How many members do you have? And what kind of options are going to be available out there for you, either working with a carrier or if you're in a state that allows self-funding, looking at a self-funding option.
Right. When you're looking at an existing one, they would already have pretty good numbers for you from the beginning.
Right. So the associations usually know about their members, who their members are, where they're located, what their businesses are. They often need to gather more information, though, about the health characteristics and the insurance options that are out there. So that requires more work to gather information, to really evaluate whether an association health plan option is going to be viable or not.
Right, but 20% savings, that's significant. That's pretty awesome.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing that we've seen in some of these, plans is a downward trend over the years as they get more critical mass and as they get better at doing what they're doing, while other kinds of options are increasing significantly.
Is this downward trend what you referenced as a death spiral of the plan, or is this something else?
The death spiral concept is one of the fears or one of the risks related to an association health plan. And it's one of the reasons why more restrictive laws have come into place over the years. So the risk of the death spiral is you have an association health plan, and then the costs spike up, and then you get, healthier groups or groups that have other options available to them leaving, which spike the costs up even more. And so then you have this, downward spiral to the point where the plan fails. There are some dynamics now that reduce that risk. The fact that there's, guaranteed issue options in the individual and small group market help minimize that risk that the healthy folks, leave the organization, and then the, remaining group is a more expensive group.
So does bias play a role in a lot of this? I'm thinking about, just as healthy members coming in from a company can reduce your costs, then those coming in with a lot of unhealthy folks do the opposite. So as a lawyer, do you see any of this, see some of these biases, and have you had to deal with any of them?
One of the issues is going to be the, extent to which an association health plan has to allow any association member in. So the federal regulations as currently drafted would require an association health plan to allow in any member who is, a qualifying member of the association, regardless of their health characteristics. Where you've got a self-funded association health plan, it's absolutely essential for the plan to do underwriting for new members who may come in to make sure that you don't have a group that's going to come in and negatively impact the financial aspects of the organization. So that kind of underwriting and review of new members is critical for the viability of the plan.
So, Todd, you mentioned that there's a lot of federal regulation that's being reviewed and that's pending. So do you find that a lot of companies that might be interested in setting up an association are kind of in limbo right now? Are you telling them to wait? What are you seeing out there right now?
Well, there's, a lot of interest in, looking at new health plan options. And I will say I work with a lot of associations, and pretty much all of them are getting contact, from their members saying, okay, so what are you going to be doing? Are you looking into, health plan options, for us? And so
Okay.
I think there is a lot of interest from employers in connecting with their associations, because obviously the concept of association health plans has been in the news now. It was included in some of the legislation that didn't pass last summer, but now we have these new regulations that are being reviewed, and those would liberalize the ability of associations to sponsor plans. So I think there's growing interest, both from members of associations and for associations themselves to consider their options.
Do you see this as an easy pass or something that it's a wait and see, and it's hard to tell what direction is going to go? Because sometimes with the legislation and things that are going on, there are some things that you can say, yeah, that's pretty much going to pass. That's looking really good. How does this look for the future?
In the short term, I think it's highly likely that we're going to have liberalization of the rules that apply to association health plans. And we've already seen that in the way that the administration is enforcing some of the requirements under the ACA and in these new regulations. And so I think it's very likely, that we're going to see a liberalization of the rules at the federal level. So a removal or a lessening of the restrictions that came from the ACA. And we've already seen a lot of movement and are continuing to see movement at the state level on this as states are looking at, what are some ways, for us to expand options available in our states for health plans.
What other things can you think of that would be helpful for association members to know at this point?
Well, I think the first thing they need to know is a good broker to help them, evaluate, what options are out there. So getting that partner to assist them, reviewing those options are key. And then, another issue that they are going to, want to look at is what does their state law look like right now? And if they're in association in multiple states, what do the state laws in those states look like in terms of the options available for health plans?
Is there anybody there other than the broker that you can go to that will clarify that part for you?
That part they can call us for. That's a legal counsel issue, in terms of what state, requirements are out there.
Wonderful. I would love for you to share what we kind of call now our beam of light. What type of advice would you give? I know that you've been in the insurance industry. You're still in the insurance industry, but as an attorney. But prior to this, you worked for a large carrier. What type of advice would you share with someone that's considering or has just entered the insurance industry?
Well, it's certainly an exciting time to be in the insurance industry. It used to be working with health plans was kind of boring, and it has been anything but that. When people are talking about your stuff on the news, then it's been a real change. And so a few things I'll say. There are some really fundamental issues that our country needs to deal with as it relates to insurance and healthcare costs and coverage. And it's really going to be the insurance industry and the broker industry that's have to help individuals and companies and the government to navigate that. So I think there's a real opportunity for those coming into the insurance industry now to help chart a course for the future. One other observation I'll make is a lot of the ideas that have come out, whether it be ACA ideas or the new repeal and replace ideas, sometimes they're lacking the kind of insurance industry and real world information. So I think there's a real opportunity to influence that debate, with the practical aspects of things that apply in the insurance industry.
Well, it almost seems like that battle is not so much about insurance as it is about politics. I almost hate to put that in, but at this point, there seems to be things that look from our perspective, well, that should be an easy solution, and it gets mired in, well, that side chose this, so we have to be on the other side. And you've got these battles going on that just make no sense.
Yeah, there's some significant philosophical differences as to, what the solution to the problem is. So the problem is rising healthcare costs, and so there's different ideas for how to solve that. Unfortunately, the political process is a difficult place to solve that issue, because it's often focused on winners and losers. What needs to happen is everyone needs to come together, recognize the issues that we have, and then find reasonable solutions that may fall on one side or the other side of the philosophical continuum.
Putting your team aside to solve the issue is something that's very difficult to do at times for folks in politics.
The real solution requires a little bit of pain from everyone, and that's the challenge.
Well, Todd, I want to thank you first for joining us on Spot On Insurance. But can you give some information to folks out there who how to contact you in case they're thinking about an association, forming one, joining one? Do you have a contact information for them?
Sure. So my phone number is 612-335-1409, and you can contact me by email at todd.martin@stinson.com.
Hey, Todd, can you repeat that phone number just one more time?
Sure can. It's 612-335-1409.
My guest today has been Todd Martin. Thank you so much for joining us on Spot On Insurance.
It's been a pleasure, Todd.
Great. Thank you.
Visit SpotOnInsurance.com, where you'll discover an ever-growing library of podcasts, videos, articles, and online tools by professionals for professionals to enhance your insurance education. By the way, that's where you'll also find our podcast notes and bonus resources. Please don't forget to click the iTunes link to rate and review, and let others know what you think of Spot On Insurance. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next week.